We sure he wasn't using a feather like Dumbo?
That could be.
Oh, could you imagine this
Where's
old,
he keeping the
like...
feather? Where's he
Right.
keeping the feather?
Welcome to Critical Café,
Join us as we chat about the latest episode,
the campaign as a whole, and Critical Role in general.
all while we partake in a delicious cup of coffee. So grab yourself a tasty beverage
Settle into your favorite cozy spot.
and get ready for a little geek philosophy. Welcome back to Critical Cafe, where we talk all things Critical Role, and this time specifically we're going to be talking about Campaign 3, Episode 34, which is sort of the aftermath of Blood and Dust, and this one is called What Dreams May Come, which is pretty appropriate. I'm glad they named it that. I am Brian, and I have with me, as always, Crystal.
Hi.
Hello. All right,
Hello.
and we got a lot to talk about, so let's just jump right into the first part of the episode. All right. Okay, so you want to get us started, or should I? I think this is a lot to deal with here, so go for it.
So we found out who was alive and who wasn't. You know, at the end of the last episode, 2 people were dead, Orem and Fern, and Laudna was on her last death save.
Oh, and before we even talked about that issue, the whole start of it was interesting because, and this is probably the whole What Dreams May Come, right? Like, the whole start of it was like sort of this dream vision thing, and it was almost like they started with, like, went around the whole table of visions that they were having or something, right? Like Matt was telling them what they
not
saw.
not everybody had one.
Yep.
That is what is so interesting to me. Everyone had one except for Fern and... who was it? We had FCG had one. Ashton had one. Orem did not have one.
Because
so
they
Fern
were
and
dead,
Orem, right?
Yeah.
Fern and Orem were dead. It was gut-wrenching, but at the same time, it was kind of crazy because we all knew, like at the very end of the last episode, Imogen's power had exploded, and it ended on everything turning white around them.
Yeah.
And then it opened up with, I think, FCG was the first dream, and it was more his recent memories, and then it delved even deeper into some of his past memories, which to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it seemed more like they were from the Calamity era, like Aor or one of the floating cities or something.
Seems like that. It seems like it was sort of a insight into when he was first, I don't know, constructed, I guess, or first came about. Like, which I think is either Aor or sometime during the Calamity. I wonder if there's also like some tie-ins that we'll get from the Calamity Exandria Unlimited show, like with things that were going on then. So
the dreams made me really curious, so I did go back and I looked at kind of the timeline for the world, and at one point there was what are they called? The Aormaton makers or artificers or whatever they were that actually like created the automatons. Apparently at one point there was a whole section of them that were taught or programmed to be assassins, and then they were sent into the homes of people.
That's right.
As a servant, offering some type of service, and then at a certain point they would turn over and assassinate the person that was they were sent to kill. So part of me kind of wonders if maybe that's where FCG gets the red eyes and the kill.
Yeah.
That's
really
kind of his other personality.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I hope I'm sure they will. They'll dive into that a little bit more as it goes on. But really interesting way of handling it. It's almost like a little Jekyll and Hyde going on, of flipping the switch and then things happen. But it was intended, like the mask he's wearing now was the cover. Right. And the real nature was the it's really interesting.
Well, and it made a point Matt made a point of saying that the man in the workshop was mean and angry, and he didn't remember liking him. And then he was in the home of this kind woman that he helped with, adjustments and things. So it sounds like he went in as the role of like a therapist, or, kind of his mask, what you're saying, like what he's doing now. Yeah. So it would be interesting to see if that plays out.
And then what's interesting too is it went, I think next, I could be wrong, but I think next it went into Ashton.
Yes.
So, and then Ashton's dream had to do with his parents, which one of them was Elvin. I didn't know that. I don't think he knew that. I don't think anybody knew that. And because he didn't know, he was an orphan, right? He didn't know his parents, or he has no memory of them.
He has no memory of them. Yeah.
That he could like recognize them in the dream as that, right? Like, so sort of that visceral, I recognize them as family kind of reaction. Really interesting.
Right. And then the other interesting part of that was the fact that at the very end of the dream, his father was putting on that ceremonial Hashari headdress and outfit and said something along the lines of, and it begins, and so it begins.
And it was the same one that he took, right? Like the same one he took when they went through, I don't know, I can't remember what it's called, but the museum that they went through when they were hired to go through. That's really interesting. So, and I'm curious of whether or not Taliesin knew that from a backstory thing to be able to do that, or if that was something from a GM's perspective, if that was something that Matt ran with. Like, he was so interested in that, and so I'm going to connect that to his backstory. Like, it was really, I'm interested to see how that worked out.
Well, yeah, because he ended up, even in the room when they were coming through looking at the different artifacts and things, he was just attracted to the Hashari. Like, at first, I think it was the leather armor or the type of armor that it was. And then later, he grabbed a headdress that went with the armor. And he took all of it. So he has it in his possession, which is crazy that it ended up being something that was from his past without actually knowing. So that is another thread of things.
Well, it's what's interesting to me, too, like from a story perspective, without him knowing. From a viewer perspective, without him knowing. From a game perspective, I just worry I wonder if it was something that Taliesin intentionally did because he knew that was the way he was playing the character, or if that's, like I said, if that was a reactionary thing from Matt to say, oh, we're going to connect this. Since you were attracted to these as a player, we're going to connect this to your backstory in a way, which is either way is really cool.
Yeah. And do you really remember what they were saying about that village? Like what happened to it?
I don't remember.
So they're not to be confused with the Ashari. They're the Hashari. And they were a cult village who were trying to tap into...
Sorry.
They were trying to tap into elemental, like worshiping type stuff. So it will be interesting to see kind of how that goes, especially with Ashton looking kind of how he looks,
Yeah, but again, sorry, go ahead. So
I think up until now we've known him as like an Earth Genasi. Well, now we also know now his father is Elven, and then he was from this village. So it will be really that's studied and worshipped, elemental stuff. So it'll be kind of interesting to figure out like where his story is going.
So again, connections in my brain going off. Like, I do follow plot lines sometimes, but like the thing that really kind of connected when they talked about that was. Am I remembering this right? But when Brendan Lee Mulligan was doing the Exandria Unlimited Calamity storyline, and then leading up to the end, it was not the term Ashari had not been around yet, and I thought it was the Hashari or a different term, Asharin or something.
It was the Gar
Ashari or something like that.
Right. It was the druids that placed the tree.
Yeah.
They were the people that were the guardians of all of that.
So it makes me wonder if those guardians if the Ashari sprung off from that, like later on down the road, if this other group also sprung from that,
Ooh.
knowing that the way things were, it was supposed to be you protect the realm, you protect the ley lines, you protect the planet, and then the wizards went this whole other level with it, and they kind of corrupted things, and they made everything happen, and basically started what it came to be as the Calamity at some level, right? So I wonder if that is a tie back to those times too, which would mean Aormaton tie back to that time, plus maybe like the line and or the lineage of Ashton. I don't know. I'm reaching a little bit, but it makes me wonder, how that all fits together too.
Yeah, I mean the whole outfit, the headdress, the whole thing was a holy, like, priest or priestess outfit from that cult leader. That cult leader wore it, I guess. So part of me makes me wonder if Ashton is, the son of that whole cult leader, or if his dad was just a priest.
Maybe.
So that really made me really interested in Ashton's backstory, though, just to kind of figure out.
Yeah, it could also be father in the sense of not necessarily biological, right? Like he could just have known him as father, from a title perspective. Like,
but Ashton said that he knew that was his parents.
Well, then it is what it is.
He just knew.
Yeah.
So that makes me think that it's his real dad.
It's very interesting. So then, then you had those two. Then you had Chetney, right? And his vision all around. Well, why don't you explain like what went on with him? So
his vision was very interesting, because up until now there have been a few people, a few of the group that you're like, okay, all right, they have a direct tie to Ruidus. Okay, there's a direct tie to Ruidus. Well, Chetney's tie, maybe it's happened before now, but I didn't catch it, directly came through with this vision dream that he had. He had a vision of himself when he was younger and loved ones, and then it turned into this hunger in his belly, and then he changed with the red moon of Ruidus, and this red light came down and like coalesced around him or something, like something shot down and hit him. So I almost wonder if he was changed as a werewolf during Ruidus. Yeah, so his werewolf nature was born during Ruidus or something.
Like a specific Ruidus type of werewolf that comes out. In addition to being maybe like the regular, I don't know. It's really interesting. I love the different take. It is a good thought experiment too. Like if lycanthropy like also is tied to a full moon, what do you do when there's a planet with two moons? Like it's cool to think about like how this all can be impacted. So it's cool.
Are you a Ruidus werewolf, or are you? What's the other name of the other moon? Oh gosh, I can't remember right now. But it has a name as well. So like, are they tied to one moon or the other, or is it just each time each one has a full moon? Because then it would definitely be a lot more frequent.
Or is it complete uncontrollable? I can't do anything with it when it becomes that, right? Like when it's Ruidus. Yeah. So what's really interesting is then Imogen, didn't really, because her thing was almost like a psychic battle of sorts, like a battle of wills between her and Odahan, right? Like it was like, her mom telling her to run away. It was her turning to run, but she couldn't. Like she turned, and then there's Odahan, and it was just like really amazing, like how much was going on with that too. Yeah,
she, the first thing that I think that struck Imogen is that she never had any memories of her mother. She did not know her mother before she was old enough to have memories. And she thought she left at birth. But the memory that she had at the very first part of that vision was her mom with her when she was little. And then Odahan showing up. So part of me doesn't know if maybe Odahan showed up in the past too.
Maybe.
And then also it turned into the fight, like in her mind. Where they were surrounding her, and she ended up having to kind of fight her off to come back.
Memory.
Part of me wonders, because her mom kept yelling. Her mom kept telling her to run. She just kept saying run, run, run. And Odahan specifically looked at them. I'm not sure if it was Imogen or Imogen's mom, and said something along the lines of, "You're a true predator. You should be with us. I'm proud of you." What does that mean? I don't know. Like a predator? Not just really... you're powerful, it's you're a predator. That's some heavy, and Matt's very particular about his word choice. So that was really interesting to me. It made me really go, what the heck is happening? And is this to her mother, or is this to her? So
right, it's and even then, like that pushback at the end of her finally letting loose and sort of through sheer force of will, like striking, and then pushing her away, and then so everything we've talked about so far was like just the first part of them just going
right, but then, not to forget Laudna. Laudna had one as well. She had one death save left. She wasn't quite dead yet.
Yep.
Oh, well, as dead as undead. Wait, I mean, as dead as she cannot be dead. I don't know.
So
sure.
as a reminder to myself and a reminder to everybody else, it's interesting because it is she's, I think, the homebrew. I say homebrew. It's a specific to Critical Role race of the Hollow One, right? So if she is that, then she technically is not undead. Her creature type remains the same mechanically as what she was before. So she's still humanoid, which is a really important thing. We'll talk about that later as it goes. But like, she's still a humanoid. Her creature type didn't change, although she gets picked up by spells and people sensing it as undead.
Right.
So like people can feel her as undead, but her creature type game mechanic wise is still humanoid.
It's almost like she just has like a sliver of humanity left.
Well, it's like...
Or like 1 foot over the threshold.
Yeah, the hollowed part is the soul is gone. But some unknown magic keeps it going. And so, but like... Anyway, we'll get there when we get to some of the other stuff.
Yeah. So her vision was, of course, when she was younger and her family, and then specifically centered around dinner, and then it morphed into the dinner that she had at Whitestone with Delilah, and then she sees her mom, but then she's overimposed with like Delilah, and then Delilah kind of latches on and then she hugs her from behind, or she gives her a hug or something and tells her that, it will go on, or, there's some weird stuff wrapped up with Delilah. So, I mean, we all know she's not leaving without a fight. So
I'm glad we didn't pass that up. Thanks for reminding me about that. Cause it's really important, I think, to put that in context, but also for the players at the table to hear it. I thought it was important. Like, nothing had happened yet. Like, nothing game mechanic wise. This was all just Matt's narration until this point, right? And until the whole part with Imogen, and then it was asking questions and letting her react to things. But then they're still in initiative order.
Yeah, we pop back into initiative.
Yes.
And whose turn is it?
And that is really important from a game mechanic perspective, because that tells you, okay, wait a minute, why are they in initiative? There's no enemies. Well, that's because initiative order has to happen because the choices that they make are time-based. There's only a certain amount of time that you have when you can cast Revivify. And so if they didn't go in initiative order, then they wouldn't be tracking time fairly for everyone to have a fair shake at what was going on. And so where they were on I remember us saying this last time, they were spread out, getting from one person to another person. Again, the ramifications of making that decision, which they didn't make a bad decision at the time. It played out this way. And so with them being spread out, getting from one person to another for FCG to be able to get to someone, first and foremost, to be able to heal someone. But then you have one death save left And Nat 1.
Yeah.
Which means you fail 2 death saves.
Yeah.
Which means dead Laudna. So now you got 3 down.
Yeah.
And 1, really 2 people. We find out 2 people. I did not think about it, but it makes complete sense about Fern. So you've got FCG and Fern that could potentially cast Revivify if they can get to people in time.
Right.
But, yeah.
Well, and I think it's one of those things that unless you've looked at the Wildfire Druid, you might not know, because it's specifically for that version of a druid. That's one of the spells that you get for your class is the Revivify spell.
Yeah.
Right. So, and then Sam, not FCG, Sam going, but I don't know if FCG would know that. I don't know if FCG would know that Fern has a spell that can bring somebody else back to life. He's like, but I have, and you can see his brain moving, and he's not allowing anybody really to sway his mind one way or the other. It had to make sense to Sam that FCG would have known. And you could tell he was really like, okay, he's seen her heal, he's seen her do this, he's seen her do that. I do believe FCG would know or hope that she would have the ability to do it.
Yeah.
And that's when Sam. Right. Yeah. Yeah.
That's hard for Sam. Like having what he went through in campaign 1 at the end. It was really well done.
Yeah.
Like really well played, fairly played, but also like, trying every way he could do to figure out how to make it happen that made sense for the story. Yeah.
And I think you could tell it was so somber and tough, and tissues were getting passed around, and you just knew. You're just sitting there like holding your breath going, oh my goodness, what's going to happen? Is he going to is he going to revivify Fern, and then Fern can revivify somebody? That still leaves someone dead.
Yes.
There's 3 dead. We only have 2 revivify.
So he had to pass the bad choice on to Ashley, unfortunately. And,
oh my goodness.
And then that was really so difficult, especially for Ashley. Like you could tell that it was the worst decision. However, funniest moment of the whole episode was when she goes, I don't know how to decide, guys. I don't know how to decide. Who votes for Orem? I was dying.
It was so bad. It was so bad. It was horrible. And then she to even do it, she flipped a coin.
Yes.
Like, it was horrible.
It's what do you do though? What do you do? Like, I mean, I feel for them, but I like the fact that they also role played their thought process of, okay, Laudna died before, and she was able to come back. She had some type of patron that brought her back. Maybe this, or hopefully brought her back, or something. Maybe that's still a thing. So I think they were banking on the fact that whatever happened before was still possible.
Yeah.
And that makes sense. It makes sense to me that they would go that route.
Yeah. If I happened to have a guest role that day, that is the route I would have taken. The logical route is that Laudna has been brought back from death before by an unforeseen, unknown entity. And by far, she has a much better chance of just spontaneously coming back to life and has lived kind of half alive for so long that, she definitely has a higher chance.
Yep.
So I probably would have made the same choice.
Too. But you know what I mean? Marisha and Liam both stayed out of that chat. Even when they brought it up, he's like, "Look, I don't want to be part of this, guys."
Right?
Because
she's bubbling in her tattoo, her death save tattoo, and then scooping her stuff up and walking out. Everybody was like, "No!" And then like as she died. So I think whenever she had her vision in the beginning, Delilah was clamping on saying, I will endure, I will remain, I will be. And then when she died, she was telling her that death is not the end. That, they could come again type thing. And she was holding her and hugging her before she passed over into being dead. So from behind, almost like I'm keeping you here type thing.
Yeah. It's interesting. So they get to the point where they're like, all right, we've got that bit of information as players, but then she left the set. I would say, I say rightfully because I think leaving the table on a show makes sense, because the viewers also, like, just sitting there and watching everything happen, it's hard to do, but it also gives the other players a chance to role play in a way that fit the situation, like where they're literally not watching her anymore, or like seeing or hearing comments from her, like she's not influencing
anything. Right.
Just a great player in general, though. Like I really, like I said this last time, I think Marisha is amazing. I think she does a great job, and even like down to the end, like you can tell how great she does this. So we're really getting to the point where it's like, all right, now what do you do? And so they've got what's his name in the portable hole, right?
Treshy. Yeah. Armand Treshy.
Yeah.
He's in the hole.
Yeah. So they're going to try to figure out everything they can do at this point.
Really quick too.
Yeah.
The look on Laura's face, not Imogen. Laura, when she realized she forgot to yell out that Laudna was dead. Remember, like in that moment where she's pulling her out of the rubble, she's doing all of this, and they're already talking about like helping Orem and helping Fern, and then like they're trying to bring her out, and then they had something that happened, and then Laura is going, oh my God, I forgot to tell everyone, because they can't see her, that Laudna's dead. You could tell, like, she was just like, oh my God, I forgot. They didn't even know. Nobody even knows that she's dead, guys. So that was hard. Really, that was hard. And then
you're already thinking about it, but you're like, you weren't necessarily, you're like, oh, everybody heard that. But like, then you're like, okay, well, I'm separating my player knowledge and character knowledge. So like, it's a hard thing.
The players know, but the characters don't. Yeah. And then on top of it, we have Orem, who's having this, wonderful time with his husband.
I have to say, I honestly thought for a minute there that Liam was going to play it and say, you know what, I'm going to stay.
I'm did
not
too.
Go back.
There was that moment. I thought that was going to happen.
I thought so too. But like the fact that his husband said, you've still got stuff to do, I think pushed, like whether or not he was deciding to do that or not, I think it pushed it into the direction of go stay.
Which, well played, Matt.
Yeah.
As the DM, because it could have been one of those things where Will could have not given him a hint or a clue at all as to what, is there more left for Orem to do? And if there is more left for Orem to do, we kind of got to give him a little nudge, because he's going to want to stay here.
Yeah. I mean,
so
it was really like all the way around. I thought it was just really tactfully done by everybody, but also, and you have to think that I don't know how long they take in between each, because they record them ahead of time now. I don't know how long they do in between each session, but if you are a player and all that stuff happened and you've got until the next game to think about, like, what are you going to do? You might have already kind of figured out, okay, we're going to do this, and then we'll try to do this, and then we'll do this. And that's natural for players playing a game. But nobody expects rolling a 1 on that death save.
Oh, it was brutal.
It just changed everything. You had a 50-50 shot of getting that, to getting back. Yeah. It was really.
I just, it was gut-wrenching.
Yeah.
But, I mean, that was pretty much the first half. Really?
First time. All right. Well, let's take a look at what happens in the second half. All right. So second half kicks in after the break. And by the way, the break was early, rightfully so, to give everybody a chance to kind of like collect themselves, to get things together.
Everybody was crying.
Yeah. I mean, like
I was crying.
if you play D&D and you play games or any role playing game where you have a character for a long time, you know how it can be emotional sometimes. If you don't, and you're watching this because you're just checking out me and Crystal, because you know us at some level, or maybe you're just checking out the channel for the first time, or whatever it might be, and you have no clue about what we're talking about, but you're still watching anyway. Maybe you're trying to fall asleep. I don't know, but it is not uncommon for players to be very attached, as we've talked about many times before, to their character. So I think it's a really good practice for DMs when you see that emotions are high one way or the other at the table, to go, okay, let's take a break a little early, get ourselves together, whether that means everybody's sad about something, whether people are frustrated with the way the games are going, whatever it might be. It's just a good best practice for any DM. So sometimes I think people watching Critical Role watch it because of the story, like I said, and it's great and all those things. But if you're a player or a dungeon master watching it, don't forget it's a game from time to time. Just put that back in your head and go, okay, it's still a game. And what are they doing to make the game run well? Like, aside from all the lights and the cameras and that kind of thing, but like, just the fact of taking the break is a good way to do things. So anyway, kudos to Matt for handling that.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it gives them a moment to get out that spike of emotion, gather themselves, and then come, or that tide of emotion, I guess, and then gather themselves and then come back to the table, you know, with better thoughts in mind, you know, their thought process in better order. Because, you know, whenever you get upset like that, everything gets kind of jumbled up, and you know, the emotion takes over for a minute. So I agree. I think it was a great thing for him to go ahead and break early, and then let them kind of pull themselves together, get a drink, go to the bathroom, whatever, hug, you know, hug Marisha, and come back.
Yeah, no, you're right. And so I think, so let's kind of sum up, or I'll let you do it because you're better at this, but kind of sum up what happened right after that. So we've got them going back to...
Yeah, they went to Imahara Joe's.
Yep.
And pretty much laid out the fact that they were in trouble and being followed, and asked if he had any connections or any way or place that they could hide. And he ended up having a cellar type place under the floorboards, under one of his tables. So they pulled all that back, went down in there, and it was like a storage room. So they were down there for a while. And now we have to remember, they have not had a break. Like, the morning started when FCG flipped out and fought the group.
It's so crazy. Like, and that didn't hit me until when FCG apologized for what happened yesterday. I was like, that was yesterday? Like, it's like so much happened to them in that period of time. It's crazy. Yeah, so no rest really until this point.
So Imahara Joe was pretty much like, give me all your gold and I'll hide you. Yeah. So he hid them under the floorboards. And one of the cool things that kind of happened is, you know, Chetney sniffed out a door that led to like an underground, like offshoot of a tunnel to a cavern. So, you know, they're not just stuck in there if something does happen to happen, and they have to kind of, you know, either get away or they have to hide somewhere else. So it was good that he found that. And then they interrogated Treshy while they were down there.
That's right.
They pulled him out of the hole, smacked him around a little bit, and pretty much made him tell the group what all of his comings and goings kind of were, and how it connected with the other players on the other side of the fight, pretty much.
All the while, also, like, I think they even asked him, I can't remember who it was, but do you have the ability to raise dead? Do you have the ability to, like, you know, help our friend?
Yeah. Yep.
All that stuff too. Like, that's definitely on their mind the whole time. It's like,
Yes.
they're determined to somehow get Laudna back, right? So
yes, they are. That is the first thing in their mind is Laudna's going to come back. We've got to get her back. We've got to find somebody who can help us bring her back.
So this is I want to mention this because I think, like, again, game mechanic perspective. One thing, I looked this up in between or before we did this as well, because I wanted to make sure, like I mentioned before, that the Hollow Ones are not undead creature type.
Right.
Important because the Raise Dead spell does not work on undead creatures.
Yeah.
So, and it specifically says that they retain the creature type they were before they were transformed in whatever they are. They're just sensed as undead. So that means creature type is still humanoid, which means that spell should still work.
Yes.
Like, Revivify doesn't have that condition. But Raise Dead has something that says it does not work on undead. And I was worried.
Well,
wait a minute.
What our choices are in the grand scheme of things is Raise Dead and Reincarnation.
Resurrection. And True Resurrection, which are really like 7th and 9th level spells. I think, if I'm wrong, comment below and let me know.
Yeah,
I could look it up after, but comment anyway. Tell me I'm wrong.
And then I think there is Reincarnation as well, and then she really would be coming back as she could be a male, she could be any race, she could be anything. It would just be her personality.
It's interesting, like options for how they handle this, and a lot of it's going to be tied to the power level of their friends, or how long until they get to be that powerful.
Right.
Like, because if you think about that, then that means if they're waiting for themselves to be able to do it, that means playing through the campaign until they get to the point where they can do it themselves.
Yeah.
Which means by then, Marisha's got a new character. You know what I mean? Like there's unless she just leaves the show, which won't happen. I hope not. Mm-mm. She will, depending on how long it takes, this is this period of time reminds me of campaign 2 with Molly and Caduceus, that sort of introduction.
Right.
In that it was completely unexpected, but also it was like, okay, part of you is also like curious about what she's going to do next, at the same time as you're like, oh, I really wish Laudna would be back, but at the same time, part of me is like, I think she'd come up with another really cool character, are we missing out on a Caduceus moment I don't know. It's interesting.
Well,
because they can always still do, Molly eventually got resurrected.
Right.
In a sense, right?
His body came back with a different personality.
With a different personality, but like Taliesin was playing that guy again at some level. So I don't know. It's just interesting. Who knows where it's all going to go? But so what are your feelings on, like, they also looked through and did some research on things that they found and the stuff in the crates and things like that. So what are your
they had a
that?
big crate or larger crate, and then they had a really small crate, and the really small crate was an iron. Sorry, Romeo, come on. Was an iron box.
Familiar is walking all over you.
So Chetney was able to get both of them open. The larger crate ended up being those potions, the gray viscous potions, which we found out are potions of possibility. And Matt made a point of saying that they looked a lot like the vials that were on the back of Odahan's backpack, like jetpack thing. So this whole time I've been kind of thinking that was where her shadows came from, but maybe they're potions of possibility and allow her to re-roll things or, determine the outcome of stuff better. Who knows? I'm sure we'll find out as time goes on. And then the second thing was they got into the iron box, which was trapped and crazy, but and it ended up being residuum, which Aurum made a point of, like, over the top point of saying this is a substance that is heavily valued. They are trying to keep it from being trafficked. It comes from one place, or majority of it comes from one place, and they keep really staunch, strict, information on who buys and what comes and what goes. So that leads us back to Whitestone again. And so one of the viable options that the group has kind of come up with is that at some point they might have to go back to Keyleth, or they might have to go to the Lord and Lady at Whitestone. So there might be this tie-in, a bigger, larger tie-in to the first season with all of what's happening behind the scenes with the residuum and things like that. So that ought to be really interesting if Marisha comprises Keyleth. She comes back as Keyleth for a little bit. It'll be really kind of cool to see how it plays out. And then also Orem and them kind of figuring out, I think Orem already knew, but talking about how the residuum can take the place of spell components.
Yeah, so I think that the other thing that is interesting is with the stuff that they found in those crates, they may have some bargaining chips with some really sort of useful and rare items in which to maybe bargain with some higher spellcaster level people to help out when it comes to Laudna. But I don't know. That's just something that popped in my brain when they were figuring out some of those things. It's like, what can you do when you don't have the contacts that you need or the spellcasters? But now that they have some things that are pretty valuable, maybe they can use that for things other than just, we're going to take this back to whoever. But that may be sort of a moral dilemma, though. Like, do you trade this stuff away given the fact that Orem was talking about how they try to keep this under lock and key? Do you use this? So that would be an interesting little twist. Who knows where they're going to go with that? But
I mean, I really would think that it would be Orem would be the only voice, saying, "Oh no, guys, I don't think this will be okay. I think we should take it back." And they do listen to Orem. I feel like he's kind of the moral compass for this chaotic group. Yeah. So I think that if he was serious enough and he said, "Hey guys, I just don't think this is what we should do," then I think they would listen to him. Because I feel like someone that might in turn be how they get the connection to, resurrect.
Yeah.
Sorry, cat hair. They get it's like they might get it upon returning that. Like, they're very powerful people in Whitestone. They're like one of the main hubs for residuum, and it's this special place that has been taken, they fought over in the past, and thankfully the DeRollos were able to get it back. But they're powerful people, so also, maybe they will know someone.
Also, a connection to Lady Briarwood with the whole residuum stuff in Whitestone. Anyway, there's a lot of stuff there that I really
a lot of threads leading
and
back.
It pays off for people who have been at one level it's just nice for the story, and if you don't know all that stuff in the background, it's fun because you're being introduced to these characters anyway. But for everybody that's been around for a while, it's kind of nice to see these things kind of pop up. So really, when it was all said and done, they did have one almost moment where they almost got found out. The guards came into Imahar Joe's business and kind of busted around a little bit, and then they did go down into the area where they were under the floorboards, but thankfully they had found the door leading out, and Chetney had got it open. Like, they had it all ready in case they needed to move out quick, and so they were able to go into that area, and the guard probably didn't roll high enough because he didn't see the door. And then they went back up and just mentioned, if you hear anything, there's a large reward out now for anyone to bring them. So then of course Imahar Joe was like, more money. He's a good dude, but you could tell like he's trying to keep his business safe and his people safe. So they dodged the guards, and then they were able to have a rest finally overnight. Contacted the sky ship. Esteros. They did the sky ship first, and the sky ship said, "Well, we've just been circling, so we're about half a day out." And then they then contacted Esteros and explained that they had Treshy and they were getting the sky ship
back to them so they could get on it and go. And then, Imogen Laura forgot to include that Odahan pulled his name out of one of their minds. So then FCG kind of followed it up with another sending and said, hey, she knows who you are. And Esteros, he seemed to take it in stride. He said he'd been planning for it for a long time. So, maybe there'll be a battle there. I mean, who knows? Yeah. He's a pretty tough old dude.
He is. And also like old school, like, not at the level of renown as her, but like at least from what we can tell, but still that might be interesting to see how that plays out. I really thought it was, to be honest, it was kind of a fun, even though it was it could have gone the wrong way when they finally called the airship and they're going through, it was almost a comical, like, comedy of errors, like the ladders going down and like the ships coming through and them trying to, it was like, all right, they kind of needed a little bit of a lighthearted, like, let's try to jump on ladders by an airship that's going up.
And Matt's giving him a little bit of a reality check too. He's like, dude, guys, you called an airship to the edge of town without even really telling them where you were. So they're trolling around the town, which is only drawing attention to this yet again town that doesn't see many airships.
Yeah, but you know what it also says to me, like, it's both a player thing and a character thing, is that you aren't thinking clearly at some level. Like things that you wouldn't have done before. You're like, I'm not thinking about that stuff. I'm just thinking about how do we get to the next step. I'm just thinking about. So
there's so much.
It was really.
Yeah.
It was pure D&D. It was like, like at the. They're getting, the ladders are getting caught as it's going through the town, and
the
fly spell.
And Chetney of all people ends up not making the ladder, and so Imogen casts fly on him. Which, by the way, the whole time he's naked. Don't know if you caught that or not. He decided that being naked was less inconspicuous or more inconspicuous. I don't know, whichever one that is. The whole thought that if he was naked, people would really pay attention to not pay attention.
It was his happy thought that let him fly.
Were you sure he wasn't using a feather like Dumbo?
That could be.
Could you imagine this old, like,
feather? Where is he keeping the feather?
This old dude, wrinkly, like, he's not in his werewolf form. He's just naked, flying around, and the guy on the ship is like, well, that's how it's done. I'm like, he's mooning everybody. Oh.
Get it? He's mooning them? All right, that was enough.
Yes. Uh-huh. I mean, kudos to Travis. He really knows when to bring some levity, and some funny, like, he is the king of putting in little places to cause minor or big reactions along the way to kind of, like, smooth things back out or make things funny or lighten the mood. So, like, I'm gonna be naked, I'm gonna strip naked, like, no. And the whole time Laura's like,
D&D.
It's so funny to me.
So that was a really good high note to end the episode for them. I thought, like, brought some levity to it. It was fun. So
they caught the ship. And they're headed out.
Well, I think that kind of covers every stuff, right? Like, I think we got up to the end. We'll hopefully be in better spirits at the start of their next one on Thursday. So.
Right.
Till then,
Well, we know they're headed to the Esteros, but they've also been heavily commenting about going to Whitestone or going to the Ashari to see Keyleth. So, to be continued.
To be continued. To be continued for us too. So, thank you all for watching, and we will catch you next time.
Thank you.
Till then, take care. Bye.